being here. We got a couple more folks to admit. So as we go along, we'll continue to do so. I think last week worked pretty well with folks raising their hand inside as well as adding to the comment section. Jillian and Justin and Susan will be logged in monitoring that as well. And of course, today's topic is device learning management system. So we will get the last couple of folks in and we'll just get started because we are recording, and we will be sharing out the link on our YouTube page. So if you've missed anything, please check it out. Real quick introductions of who's here.
Hi, Kim Strelo, LCTA VP.
Susan Walden, Office of Professional Learning.
Justin Williamson, Technology and Information Services.
Jillian Gregory, Assistant Superintendent.
Next week that we have is scheduled to be professional development.
Yes.
I don't know why I forgot that one, because Susan just sent an email yesterday about professional development, and it was in the update that came out by Shane, I think you said. That it's going to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're going to do is we're going to push it out as well. This is kind of like a pilot program to get the micro-credential professional development, and anyone that does the micro-credential will get professional development points for it. So there's a lot of positives to that, but it also lets you take a look at it pre-screening and provide some feedback to Leon County Schools.
And ironically, today I'm having technical difficulties on the day we're talking about technology. So my apologies. Usually I'm a little bit more organized and sitting at my device, but I wanted to say good morning to everyone. And again, my name is Jillian Gregory. I'm one of the assistant superintendents. For those of you who may not be familiar with my work, my team and I work in academic services. And so what that means is that we are the ones who are dealing with instructional materials and testing and school improvement and school accountability. And so our work is pretty varied, but it really centers around teaching and learning in Leon County schools. And so as we're moving towards this one-to-one initiative, the superintendent and the school board approved the purchase of the devices 2 weeks ago. And then on just this Tuesday, the school board approved our learning management system. And so the learning management system that we will be using K-12 is called Canvas. And it really is best in class. It's one of the best learning management systems in the industry. Another learning management system, just to kind of give you a frame of reference that you might be familiar with, is Blackboard. And so Canvas is similar to Blackboard. We have been using Canvas in our district for about 3 years, particularly at the high school level, and particularly with blended courses. Separate from this initiative, there is a graduation requirement, for those of you who may not be familiar, that all students in the state of Florida, when they earn a standard high school diploma, must also have earned at least 1 credit online. And so in our district, to help support our students meet that need, we have been providing online learning to those students using Canvas since the passage of that requirement. So we have actually a cadre of professionals in our district, colleagues, who've been using have been using Canvas for the instruction of Hope Online, which is one of our courses because it's a graduation requirement. So it kind of checks 2 boxes, Hope plus online, but also GovEcon because that's a senior graduation requirement. So by getting students in 9th grade with Hope, which is generally a 9th grade class, and with GovEcon online in a blended format, we're giving students 2 opportunities to meet that graduation requirement. which is all to say that in our district, we've already been using Canvas. And so some of you have been exposed to it perhaps as a function of your work in high schools, but others of you may not know anything about Canvas. And so over the course of the next several weeks, our professional learning department under the leadership of Mr. Seifert and Ms. Walden are developing professional development mini PDs, and Mr. Mazur was referencing that we're gonna go ahead and start posting out. I think there's 3 already posted. And we're gonna, I know they're gonna share this out. These are our first, these are like our beta mini PDs. And so we want your feedback. Are they working for you? Are they too long? Are they too short? What are we missing? Are they graphical enough? Are they too word intensive? Like all of those kinds of things, because adult learning, we need to meet you where you are. It's not enough for us to say, oh, we did a great job and move on Mississippi. We need to meet you where you are. And so Miss Walden and our team are eager to get your feedback, and then use that constructive feedback to help us as we roll out the rest of our professional learning mini PDs and professional development over the course of the summer. With that, because we're using Canvas and it's so widespread, actually, if you go to YouTube, which is I think what all the kids are doing these days, if you go to YouTube, you can find a Canvas channel. And on the Canvas channel, they have a whole library and catalog of resources that are put together by the experts at Canvas. And then we also, because we have experience with Canvas with our virtual school and our blended courses at high school, our TIS department, under the leadership of Mr. Nimmons and Mr. Whittle, have developed much more intensive professional development opportunities. So our goal is to provide many channels for our teachers and our stakeholders, our parents, our students, and our administrators to learn more about the Canvas learning management system. And so, as we mentioned, so I consider online learning and kind of where we're going in the future with the pandemic in August, like this three-legged stool. There are devices. There's a learning management system, which is what you put on a device that manages things. And Mr. Williamson's going to talk about both of those. And then there's content. And so we're working on the content, and we'll get there in a minute. But for the purposes of today, we really want to talk about the devices. What are they? What are their strengths? What are their challenge? Like, no device is perfect. So what are their shortcomings, right? And, there's a screen size, 11.6. So, so Mr. Williamson is going to really talk to you about these the clamshell. What's a clamshell? A brick. What's a brick? Like, there are all these things that I've learned in the last several weeks because I am, not a technology. I'm not a technology native, and I'm not a technology file. And so I've been learning these too. And so there's just some vocabulary that we're going to share with you today, and then talk about how, where they are. Our plan is to get them here at the beginning of the school year in August. I think you've heard the rhetoric around we plan to open school and offer digital academies and those kinds of things. And certainly after the presentation or the discussion by Mr. Williamson, we'll be able to really talk. I can talk about what that looks like, what we know today, and then where we're going. And then we have the task force next week. And so I can also talk about that if you'd like. But these meetings are really about collaboration and for us to kind of go back and forth. I think I felt like last week was a really productive meeting. We left with some action items and some really thoughtful reflection points that we used to discuss as we were working all week long. And we hope that today is as you as it has been for us. And so without further ado, Mr.
I think you have a couple of questions if you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I'll answer whatever as I don't. Oh, here it is. Yeah. This is not my machine, so I'm sorry. Yeah, I got it. Let's see.
First one is about pre-K.
I'm here. So for distance for our pre-K students, so Miss Bruner and I, pre-K is in my shop too. Miss Bruner and I are working on that. Pre-K students are not scheduled to get devices right now, and we've really wrestled with developmentally if it's appropriate for them to get devices, but we have been working on developing curriculum. And I will say that when we held our focus groups with our parents, pre-K parents participated, and we really received positive feedback from our pre-K parents with regard to the type of work. If there is something different, if you will let us know, let Ms. Bruner know with you and try and get all of that feedback. But right now, pre-K is not on deck to get devices.
Okay. Does that mean that we would, in this, I'm sorry, that was me that asked the question.
Sure, yeah.
Is it all right if I ask another one?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely. Follow up.
So we did kind of what everyone did when we were sent home. We kind of just did the best we could with what we had and delivered what curriculum we could.
Yeah.
In the event that we're sent home or what have you, we just would continue to just kind of do our best with what we have. Is that sort of the
trick is, so here's our little sticky wicket with pre-K. We had been in the process of purchasing new curriculum, if you remember.
I do. Mm-hmm.
And so know where we are on that. I believe we've purchased it, and I don't know that we're gonna roll it out if
Right.
not in school, because
Yeah,
that
they're piloting it. So
Yeah.
I doubt people
So-
are ready for that yet.
Yeah, so exactly. So I hate to defer you to Miss Bruner, but I don't feel like, other than knowing what I've shared, I don't know too much more about pre-K. So can you email me, gregoryg@leadschools.net, and then I'll get Miss Bruner, and maybe we can have a pre-K meeting. A
Of
pre-K.
course. Great. Yeah, I have had a lot of coworkers are
Yes.
asking.
For sure. I understand. And so I will get Miss Bruner and I to do something with pre-K teachers soon.
Okay, thanks.
Shari asks, what does that replace for the rest of us? LCTA.
Those are three different things. One, what does Canvas replace, so that if I'm thinking about, I don't know what operating
Yes.
with the learning systems are.
Sure.
What am I currently using that's going to take the place of? The other was just a piece of information, just so people know that
Oh.
the task force also includes all of the stakeholders.
Oh,
under Canvas.
yes.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come and
The screen to share. I don't think Justin. I think he's just going to speak to it.
You may have to mute yourself.
Okay,
You're
yeah.
gonna get feedback. All right. Oh, are we mute?
I did try to mute him.
Yeah,
I
mute
did.
your.
You're
turn the
unmuted. We
sound
can
on.
hear you, Justin.
down.
All right. Is that better?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Shari, I think we can, let's talk through devices, and then let's talk about Canvas, and then see, then circle back to your question if that's okay, because I think maybe we can answer that as part of our conversation. So the devices that K-12 students will be receiving are an HP Chromebook device. It's an 11.6-inch screen, which is a small laptop. It will have a full keyboard and a trackpad at the bottom. It is not a touch screen device. So just keep that in mind as you're planning for the rollout of these devices and how you're going to use them in the class. There's a trackpad at the bottom. They will come in a clamshell, which is a hard case that will be around with rubber edges on the side to help prevent any damage should it be dropped. But they're pretty rugged devices. They're actually an educational grade device that we purchased from HP, and then we're putting the case on top of that. We're also, as part of the physical device itself, as a Chromebook device, it's really meant to be a web device. And so everything that we're using for the most part now is already a web-based application. So if you think about all the kind of tools that you use in your classroom, whether at the elementary level, Think Central or Connect-Ed for Wonders, or Connect-Ed really goes all the way through secondary for multiple subject areas, iReady, Achieve 3000, STAR, all of those kind of programs that we're using are already web-based. And so they'll be able to run on this device in the browser itself. It's a fairly simple device because it really is just meant to be on the web. And so for that, there's not a lot that we have to do in terms of configuration management, and there's not even a lot of troubleshooting for the device. If the device is not working, it's a turn it off or turn it on. And if that doesn't solve it, there's something else going on with the device. And so, there's not a lot of troubleshooting to it. It's actually because of its simplicity. At the elementary level, where we are today, and we're still in a planning phase, so take that, everything that I say with a grain of salt as we're still planning. But where we are today is, it looks like K-5 will be keeping the devices at elementary level at the school. And so as part of our rollout, as part of our deployment to the elementary level, we'll be installing in every classroom a cabinet, a charging cabinet. And so they have a very small footprint. And so they're not even carts anymore because we no longer need to move them, so they don't have wheels. And so there'll be a small cabinet in the elementary classrooms for the devices to be stored in and charged overnight. Should we have to retreat to a distance learning kind of mode again, we have to close schools. Our principals, we've already had conversations with them about developing at the elementary level a deployment schedule, or process so that they could hand these devices out to parents so they could go home, in that kind of situation. But under normal operations, the devices will stay at school. At the secondary level, so from 6 through 12, we are looking for these devices to probably go back and forth every day. And so it will actually be assigned to the student. And so they'll be able to, to carry that back and use the device at home. We are, as part of the purchase, we did build in, because we recognize that this is potentially a shift in instruction. And once we go this route, that the expectation is that the student's always going to need a device. And because you're going to, as you change your instruction to incorporate these into the classroom, this device becomes a pencil, and the student has to always have a pencil. And so there is, 5% overage in devices that are kept at the school. So should a device malfunction or be broken, a student can, easily go down, and we're working out where location, and every school's determining how that will work internally in their processes. But essentially, a student can go down to some location and retrieve, a device, do a swap if their device isn't working, and immediately, come back to the classroom with another device that has been assigned to them. The school will be able to check in, any damaged device, and then check out another device to them, so that they always have access to a device. We're also working with our partners in the community: Comcast, Verizon, T-Mobile, CenturyLink, Freddie Figures Communication, and a couple of others to assess where we have internet capabilities. So for our students who do not have internet capabilities at home, we are working on ways with our partners to address that. And so that's just really kind of a brief overview of the device itself. I see there's several questions.
I'm working on them.
Oh, okay. Is there anything?
Devices. Can you explain a little bit, Mr. Williamson, about how are the devices inventoried and tracked to students and that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. And as part of our purchase of this, we entered into what's called a white glove service agreement, which means that the company really manages the majority of everything with these devices. So it's not it's not a huge additional lift or burden on our existing staff at the school level. We recognize that we're bringing in 32,000 new devices, and we're not getting additional staff to support those. And so the company is really doing the majority of the work with the devices. And so they are providing us an asset management system. It's very similar to what we see in our libraries. And so, we have the system in the library that checks out a book, assigns it to a student, and then it checks it back in. This system does the same thing. So it will check out the device to a student, and then when they return it, it checks it back in. This system also manages everything about the device. And so if a device is reported lost or stolen, and anybody at the school who has access to this management system goes in and they immediately mark this device as lost or stolen, it will immediately lock down that device so that it cannot be used. And so the only thing when somebody turns on that device is they'll get a big screen that says this device has been reported lost or stolen. Please call this number. And that's all that device can never do. And so all of that is managed seamlessly kind of through the asset management system that we'll be deploying as part of this.
There's a question.
Yeah.
Will students be required to use these devices, or if they want to bring their own devices, can they bring their own devices?
So we've had this question come up a couple of times before, and it was even discussed at one of our previous board meetings.
And since I'm muted, you want to repeat the question.
I'm sorry. So the question regarding students being able to bring their own device or using the device, using the device that we assign them. In regards to that question, we've had it come up a couple of times in school board meetings and in task force and other places. And where we kind of stand today as a district is we really want to ensure that all students have the same educational experience. And in order to ensure that all students have the same educational experience, all students need to be using the same device. There's also a management issue as well. And so, if students are bringing devices in that are not LCS managed devices, there's nothing that we can do on our side, to assist with that device, to do any troubleshooting. And so from our perspective, certainly we recognize that many of our students already have devices at home, that their parents have bought them, and that's wonderful. And so, certainly they can continue to use those devices at home, but at school, I think the expectation is going to be that they're using the district assigned device.
So another question, the current computers in our classrooms, are those staying, or will those be removed?
So that is, yeah, so the devices that are in the classroom, we are working with principals right now and with your tech cons, have conversations with your tech cons. We've had some initial conversations with them as to what happens to those devices. And so we're coming up with a plan. And so at some point in time, there may be some shift there in devices. What we have said to schools for today is to not do anything with those devices and not to move them or shift them at this point until we actually have these devices, these Chromebooks in hand, because they are, coming over and then they have to be prepared and they have to be deployed. And so, we're still on track for an August 1 deployment date, but there's a lot of days between now and August 1. And so many things can happen between now and August 1 that a hurricane, trade wars, global pandemics, there's a lot of things happening in the world that could potentially disrupt that August 1 date that's outside of LCS's control. And so we've asked schools to just leave the devices, your current setup the way it is, so that should you have to start school without this Chromebook in hand, it's kind of still business as normal. Hopefully that is not the case, but we didn't want to leave anybody in a lurch if we've removed devices from your classroom and then you don't have the new device to replace it.
Can we add GPS or Find My PC type app to the devices? Will they have that kind of functionality?
They do not have tracking capabilities in terms of knowing actually where the device is. They don't have any type of cellular connectivity or GPS tracking in them. But like I said, they are a relatively inexpensive device. So they're not, they're $250. They're not an expensive device. But should we report them lost or stolen or misplaced, it essentially, as Jillian said early on, she's heard the word brick, and that's what the device becomes. It becomes a brick. And so until the device is returned to us or recovered, it will remain a brick forever.
Next question is, I guess as a follow-up to that, can you speak to will teachers be able to just download apps or push, so doesn't this kind of centralize that process?
Yes.
Okay.
So the question that we hear a lot is being able to add things to the device. And so this is a web-based device. And so it's not meant to really install applications on like a Windows machine or a Mac device. It's really meant to get you onto the internet and for you to be able to do everything to the internet, through the internet. So what we're doing, a couple of things in terms of applications. Most everything that you are dealing with is already web-based. And so in ClassLink, we're rolling out some new features there called Backpack. That will allow teachers to assign applications directly to their students within ClassLink. So anything that's on a website, you'll be able to assign it to them in ClassLink. You'll also have the ability, once we get into Canvas and start setting things up in Canvas, to assign applications, to attach applications as well within Canvas. And so anything that is web-based, you'll be able to, as the teacher, be able to push out to your classes.
So I don't know if you know this, and I think we can put a pin in it, but will the smart bus still be used next year?
So I am not sure. I think we'll have to just kind of put a pin in the smart bus situation. I'm not sure where we are with that as to whether it will still be in operation next year or not.
Okay, next question. Will the personal devices be used for state testing? Personal as in the ones assigned to students.
So these devices do meet the requirements for state testing. That was one of the things that was required as part of the purchase of these devices. We made sure that they did meet those minimal requirements. And so they can be used for state testing. I think, oftentimes we defer to schools as to how they construct their testing schedules and how they, their rotations and how they want to handle things. But the device itself is physically capable of being used for testing.
Can you speak a little bit about the teacher responsibility for devices that stay at school? Are they signed out to the student if we put them in this docking station overnight? I think what I've heard a couple of times is there's a fear of using the devices teachers being personally liable for the devices. I've heard that kind of woven through a couple of other conversations.
All right. So I don't think that there's any teacher responsibility in terms of liability for teachers being personally responsible for the device there. So, as we talk about the responsibility for those devices, Certainly at the elementary level, the devices will be kept, in the classroom. I think the teacher responsibility will just be to make sure the device is put back in the cabinet and locked at night. And I think that's where your responsibility and liability ends. It's just making sure that the device is returned. And for elementary teachers who, have had a laptop cart in their classroom, it really is the same thing. Instead of just returning it to a rolling cart, you're returning it to your cabinet every night, and just locking the door on it. And
Yeah. Who's in charge of that? Is that school management making the decision about personal liability, or who do we? Because you're saying, I don't think.
Right.
So
we'll
get something in writing.
We'll certainly, we'll put out, though, in terms of any responsibility and any process and procedures that need to be in place in terms of classroom, we'll get something out in writing to you. But I think once you see it, it's going to be a very simple process, and not much of a lift for you.
So next question, is there a test security feature involved with the devices or software? If so, how can we ensure they're not using their own device at home instead?
So when we talk about test security, there's a couple of different things here. So in terms of state assessment, then yes, the standard, the secure browser will still be loaded on the device, and the device will be secured the same way as your computers are during assessment. In terms of security and for like a teacher-made assessment, there is not a secure browser. There's not a secure browser that is built into this device for teacher assessments. But the intention is that outside of a pandemic mode, or having to retreat because of a hurricane, is that those assessments and things would still be conducted in the classroom under your supervision. And so there's not, under normal operations, there's probably not a huge need there for that.
Will teachers have a computer monitoring program so we can see students' screens from our computers and maybe
Yes.
even? Okay.
Yes, we are working on that. In fact, we're getting ready to enter into some agreements with that. It may be a little bit early for me to talk about because we haven't entered into the agreement yet, and so we need to notify some vendors and do some things on our end. But the system that we're looking at, we'll hopefully be able to share with you in the next week or two, is I think you're going to be very, very pleased with. And so that you do have those capabilities. For those of you who are familiar with Land School, this is similar to Land School, but actually gives you a lot more capabilities in terms of filtering internet activity and what students can access and when they can access it. It actually gives you some control over that. And so we're working on that agreement right now, and then hopefully we'll have something to share in the next couple of weeks.
Will students be able to watch Netflix and Hulu on these devices?
So that is the system that we are looking at. The question is, Netflix, Hulu, those kind of things. The system that we're looking at purchasing is actually a replacement to our filtering system. And so in addition to you being able to see all the students' screens, it also allows you to have some control over the filter for your students in your classrooms. So, if we're able to go this route, then it won't be you having to go to your TechCon saying, I need Netflix unlocked for this one period because we're going to do something special, or I need this locked down because it's an issue in my classroom. You as the teacher will actually be able to control that.
Will schools receive extra devices for future enrollments, or will they have to request each time a new student enrolls?
No, there are, as part of the purchase, we build in 5% extra, and so those go into the essentially into the spare case for the hot swap. So if a device is malfunctioning or needs to be repaired, a student can bring that down and take a device and swap it out. There's 5% extra there, and so it was our intention that any extra student coming in would also just pull from that bin, and then we will redistribute and allocate those spares between schools if needed. If we see that we're running low at a school somewhere, we'd reallocate.
Another question is, sounds like we could purge computer labs and use the computer labs as classrooms.
So that is something that we've actually discussed with with principals, is that going forward, that there may be, particularly at the elementary level, no longer having a need for computer labs. At the secondary level, general labs at some point in time could come down. I do think your CTE labs, your business labs, your Adobe labs, your video editing labs, they're going to need a full computer. They're going to need a full powered machine, and so those labs won't be able to come down. But general ed labs and then elementary labs at some point, yes, the intention is that they will probably come down to free up space on your campus.
Just in the 5% extra, one of the questions was, does that grow as the district grows? That means if we get greater enrollment, does the 5% go up, or how does that work?
So our enrollment has remained relatively flat over the last several years, and so the question as to whether we increase 5%, if we add 10 more students to the district, do we go out and buy one more computer to add into that? Or if we add 100 students, do we buy 5 more computers to add into that? Initially, I don't think that is the plan because our enrollment has remained flat, relatively speaking. But if we see that, of course, that there is a shift there, we would certainly make some changes there.
Will they have to have sign-up forms?
Okay.
Will they have to have sign-out forms for students?
So we're working on all of that with sign-out forms, policy and procedures, a handbook. We're working on all of those things with our policy and procedures departments, our attorneys department. We're talking with our principals, all about determining what that procedure is and what students sign. For the device. Certainly, there's going to be some sort of handbook that we'll have them sign that will include a code of conduct. What is acceptable use for this device. Care instructions. All of those kind of things are currently being developed, and that's certainly we'll probably have an elementary version and a secondary version of those documents because elementary. One is using the device a little bit differently than secondary, and then there's just the differences in students, and so we'll tailor that to each level.
So if we use something web-based that is not a Leon County app, such as Boom Cards, our kids can be assigned this in their backpack for our class.
I am not familiar.
That's Kelly Keepin, so maybe she wants to.
Yeah, Kelly. Kelly, your question. We may. I'm not familiar with Boom Cards. I'll certainly have to take a look into that, and feel free to reach out to me directly, Williamson J, and we can discuss that and take a look at it. There is the Google Play Store. So these are Chrome devices. They are Google devices. The Google Play Store does have some apps in it for Chromebooks, and so some of the mobile apps that are in the Play Store can run on the Chromebooks, but the intention is to lock down the Play Store pretty tight because we don't want students to be able to just go in and install any game or do any of those type of things on the device. And so our intention was to lock it down pretty tight and then force students to use the web, which gives you as teachers and gives the district, everyone, much more control over the device. But we can certainly take those things on a case-by-case basis.
Hey, this is Kelly Capin.
The question is,
Can you hear me?
I think even though she's saying Boom Cards, will teachers have the flexibility to assign various apps in the backpack, I guess?
Yes. So ClassLink has a feature called Backpack, and so it is a tile that will appear on the bottom of a student's screen in ClassLink, and when they click it, it will open up, and inside ClassLink, they will see a card or see a folder for each one of their classes. And within that folder, they will click, and it will show all of the apps that have been assigned or have been rostered for that class. And so I'll use an example. I'm an elementary teacher, so I'll use the elementary example. Language arts. When the student clicks language arts, they'll see that for the language arts classes, Brain Pop is rostered for language arts. They will see that Connect Ed is rostered for language arts. Star Reading and AR are rostered for language arts. So they will see all of those apps under language arts. You as the teacher, as the language arts teacher, have the ability on your backpack, so you'll have the same screen, but you will have an add button at the top. And you can click add and add any app to there. You can add Quizlet, Kahoot, any of those kind of apps that you want students to be using in your class. You'll be able to just click the add button and select them from all of the apps that are already built. There's, 10,000 plus apps that are already built in ClassLink.
Okay.
You'll be able to select any one of those, and then students will then see that app in their backpack.
And I'm sure Boom is already on there. It's an electronic
Miss
work
Maynard
task
has a
cards
question about
that go.
things
you
and
can-
that Teams and working as an app, but I think when you get to Canvas, that would probably be a better time to talk about that.
Yeah.
The next device question, will you just tell Miss Nader, we'll get to her question when we talk
Yes.
about Canvas.
Yes,
And then-
Ms. Mader, if we could hold your question for just a minute, because I want to jump in and have a conversation about Canvas as well.
So the next question related
That's
to
fine.
devices. Are teachers receiving new devices as well?
So we are working on that right now. We sent out a survey yesterday to schools, and we've already had conversations with principals to work on ensuring that every instructional staff member has a district assigned device. And so a lot of you already have district assigned devices. Some of you have, I should say some, maybe not a lot. Some of you have district assigned devices already. Several of you may not have a district assigned device. We actually have 1,100 new laptops that were purchased for Rickards as part of their construction. We will be reallocating those to teachers, as well as pulling some other new devices that have been purchased within the last year. They'll be going out to teachers to fill in any gap for any instructional staff member who does not have a device. And so it's our goal for every instructional staff member to have a district assigned device given to them that is capable of doing distance learning. And so, that includes a web camera, a microphone, certainly internet capabilities. There'll be probably a Windows device. Some of you may have Mac devices, and certainly if they meet our minimal requirements, be allowed to continue to use those as well. But our intention is to ensure that every teacher has a device. And so we're in the process of kind of inventorying and surveying and making, those determinations as to which schools need how many devices. But
And Ms. Gorge asked, what's the priority for who gets what? That's all the way at the bottom, and I'll go back up.
the priority for
who gets what, on those 1,100, that question.
Do you understand my question?
Ms. Guanter, the priority.
Like,
so I think what you're
elementary
asking me
teacher getting
is.
first, and then secondary, and then how is it?
You're muted.
I think there you go. Try now.
Meaning,
Yeah. Okay. Oh, you muted again.
is it priority to get the higher ed ones, the middle, or is it just, hey, you've had this really, really old iPad, so you get to change it in for something newer?
Yes. So we put out, as part of our survey and part of our conversation with schools, we specified minimal specifications. And so your device has to meet certain requirements. And so if you have an older device, it's probably not going to meet the minimal specifications that we put out, because the ones that we put out are for devices that are essentially within 1 to 2 years, no older than that. If they're older than that, they're not going to meet the minimal specifications. And so, they're a relatively new device. And so, if you have an older device, your school is not going to be able to count that as a device that they have deployed to an instructional staff member. And so, we will just count it as if you don't have one.
Will devices transferred from students from school to school?
So that we are still working on procedures. And so, things are still kind of in a flux as we're working through all of that with, our principals and our executive leadership and our policy people in regards to device transferring between schools. I think where we are today, and this could change, but I think where we are today is that probably not. The device, a student leaves the school, they'll turn it in, and then when they go to their new school, they'll get a new device. It'll be assigned to them, but that could change. It should not cause any problems because everything that the student does is in the cloud. And so it's online. And so student is able to sign into any of these devices, and it immediately just becomes their device, and it has all of their stuff, on it. And so, that's kind of where we are leaning today. But that could change. We're still kind of hammering out those type of decision points.
The next question about devices and teams is, can we limit the number of classes in teams and backpack for K students since they only have one teacher?
Yeah, so in regards to the number of classes that appear in teams and in backpack, for elementary students in particular. That is something that we've wrestled with and we have worked on and are continuing to work on. The problem is all of these systems are automated, which is great. I don't know if you all remember, just 5 years ago, every student was getting their own username and password, and we were having to enroll students. Yeah, I see people in the room rolling their eyes. Yeah, yes, it's remember those days. So we've gone to automating all of these systems and tying them into our student information system. The problem is that we run into is that elementary schools actually have 20 periods. You have 20 periods on your schedule, and it's so that the periods. It's so that the periods can be short periods, and so that we can fit into. We can fit all of the things into the correct blocks. And so because of that, Focus recognizes that there are like 20 periods for elementary schools, and it sends all 20 periods, it's pushing that out. And so we've had some internal conversations. We've had some conversations with our integrations teams to see if there's a way we can clean that up a little bit. But that's kind of, we in all honesty, and to manage everyone's expectations, we've not come to a great solution on that, because we're stuck in this. We're supplying the data, and this is what the data says. The data says there is 20 periods. But the problem is, of course, that's really overwhelming for a kindergarten student, and we recognize that too. And so we're working on it.
Yes, it's on the list. Will you let Melinda and Miss Jones know we see her questions, and we'll get back to them. We're going to continue with devices.
Sure, Miss Jones, we'll circle back to your question.
Yes, we do have district device. There are several comments about the age of the current devices teachers have.
Yeah.
And so in some of the devices they've been assigned are desktops.
Yeah.
So can you just go back and just hit that back, because there were several that came in.
Sure. All of the devices that we were talking about assigning to teachers are mobile devices. And so certainly, you probably have a desktop that's been assigned to you within your classroom. A lot of you probably now have interactive boards assigned to you in your classrooms as well. But when we talk about assigning a device to teachers, we're actually talking about every teacher having a mobile device. And so some sort of laptop. And being able to take a device for you to be able to take home and use at home as your district, Leon County Schools mobile device. And again, the age of the devices, we recognize that some of you already have devices that are assigned to you that are really, really old. And so, those devices will obviously need to be replaced because they won't meet our minimal specifications that we put out there. And like I said, our technology staff wrote those minimal specifications, and they're pretty high specs on them. And so their devices, if it's older than a year, 2 at the most, it's not going to meet that threshold.
So they should anticipate getting
So I would anticipate if you have a really old device that you're probably getting a new one there.
But not everyone's getting the same device on day one. Like
yes. I do want to manage that. What we are going to try to do in terms of the device is for everybody at the school to have the same device or a similar device. But it is possible that somebody at this school has, a Dell device, and somebody at another school has an HP device. Because we are pulling from our existing stock of new laptops that we've purchased in the last year or so, and so there have been some differences, between devices, but they're going to be minor. And really, I think the biggest difference you're going to see is the logo that's on the case.
What about special area teachers? And so, do they get device? Do they get their own?
So we are looking for special area teachers. We even asked about support teachers, ESE, media specialists, guidance counselors, any instructional staff, speech pathologist, anybody who is an instructional staff member who is supporting students. We are trying to include them in that count there.
And then the next question is, can students save on the device?
Can students
Save in the cloud.
Yes. So with
the question is, can they save on the device?
So students saving on the device. So this integrates. The device will integrate with Office 365. And when we talk a little bit about Canvas,
That's next.
okay. When we talk about Canvas, we'll talk a little bit about how assignments work as well. But students saving on the device, it can, if they do not have an internet connectivity, It can save locally on the device, but the device is really meant to always be connected. And so that as they are saving, they are really saving in the cloud. They're saving in their Office 365, and that's really just kind of happening seamlessly in the background.
And then this one I think is a curriculum. So will special area ESC speech teachers have direct access to student backpacks?
The special area ESE teachers having access to students' backpack question, that is something we're going to have to look into. The problem that we run into there is they will have access. So so I'll use elementary special area and I'll just use art. The art, when a 5th grade student goes into their backpack, they will see a tile for art that belongs to the art teacher. Now the art teacher, God bless you, you're going to see 60 tiles, for each one of your art classes. And so you'll be able to assign an app to the individual art classes. You will, as the art teacher though, will not be able to see the language arts tile. That tile will belong to the language arts teacher.
What about ESC special?
ESC special area, speech, those areas, if they are on the student's schedule, and most of those things are scheduled, then it will see the same thing as well.
There's a help students can, this is not related, but can you answer this question because it's been students cannot use the reset link password link on Khan Academy when using their school email because the email link doesn't arrive in their inboxes. Who can we contact to fix the situation?
Okay.
Now we have to submit a ticket to Khan every time a student needs a password reset.
Got the question or the comment about Khan Academy. Thank you for letting me know that you're having that issue. I will take that back to TIS. I think we can fix that. The way that our email system works is for students, they may only communicate internally. And so they can only email other students and they can only email staff members and it's always been that way. And so nobody outside of the district can email a student and they cannot email outside of the district. And so, there's no emails going back and forth. It's all contained. And of course, all students, we still archive student conversations just like we archive our conversations. So we have that capability. And some of you may be aware because you've used us in the past to say, hey, I'm having a cyberbullying issue or some other issue in my classroom. Can you see who did what? And so certainly, we can do that. But we can, for certain instances, we can allow certain emails to come through from the outside to students. And so I will take that back and see if we can allow the Khan Academy email to come through and so that they get it in their inbox.
How will we address building responsible digital citizens?
So we are working on a number of professional development courses for students. And so really these are lessons for schools to be able to deliver. And so certainly schools have always been required to teach internet safety as part of SIPA. And so that's something that should have been happening every year. That's SIPA is the Children's Internet Protection Act. And so it does require, one of the components of SIPA is digital citizenship. And so we've used Common Sense Media in the past several years to provide those lessons to schools. I think at the elementary level, a lot of times media specialists have been the ones who've been delivering those messages. At the secondary level, it's different classes, maybe social studies or an ELA class has done an internet safety lesson. But we are working to build out those lessons even more, especially now that every student's going to have a device. And so that is on our PD board, thank you, is on our list of 800 PD topics that we are developing. And so.
Just when you're done, I'm going to add a little something to that just to help. Yeah. Just to say, I wanted to say too that on our PD board, like Mr. Williamson said, we also have, in addition to the SIPA training and everything that usually occurs, we're trying to get some documents together and some resources for parents and students, because we know that it doesn't all happen in the school environment as well, to support in that digital citizenship piece. That is a topic that we have on our radar too. So I just wanted to add that.
Someone's asking, can a teacher choose a MacBook for their home device?
So I don't know.
They have to go to their school.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question about can the teacher have a MacBook. I think that's going to be a really just conversation at your school level. I don't know that we will have that kind of granular ability to deploy them or distribute them like that.
The next question is there an insurance fee students are required to pay? I keep hearing about a $25 fee on some of this fee, blah, blah, but not from an LCS representative.
Yeah, so that is something that was mentioned at a school board meeting and a gender review, and when we are exploring possibilities, and so no decision has been made on that, and so I think $25 was just a fee that was thrown out there as a hypothetical, and so it is our intent, and we're working with our policy department and then our general counsel and all of those individuals as to what happens when a student breaks a device and it was negligence, or they lose a device. What is their liability there? And where I think we are landing today is that the device is, will be treated very much like a textbook. And so when a student loses a textbook, we have recovery processes and procedures that are in place. And when a student destroys a textbook, we have recovery and procedures in place. And so that's where we're at today. The insurance is something that we're working on potentially building out, because we recognize that some parents say, hey, I know my child is going to break this device. And so I see that, and see Ms. Gregory is nodding her head. And so we're working on an optional, insurance device or insurance fee that parents could opt into that would help to offset that cost if they lose or damage the device. And so that all that's still being worked out, but that's where the $25 fee that you've heard is coming from.
Philosophically, we understand, it's really about the philosophy of holding individuals responsible.
Yes. Yeah. It is very much about, certainly keeping students and parents responsible for these devices.
I think one of the questions, and I don't think you need to address it, but just acknowledge we see it, is that ESC resource teachers, right? So they're not tied to the student because they're resource teachers,
right,
who are need to be able to access all assignments from other content classes in order to, so.
Yep. Actually, can I address it?
Yeah.
So, because I'm super excited about this, the ESC resource teacher being able to access content. We certainly know this has always been an issue in the past, and so resource teachers typically aren't assigned on a student's schedule. If they're a true resource teacher. Now, oftentimes we call someone a resource teacher and they're actually assigned to the schedule, and so maybe there's a title issue there. But a true resource teacher is not on a student schedule, and so because they're not on a student schedule, they don't have access to anything the student has. And it goes back to my earlier conversation about us pulling the data directly from Focus and sending it into all of these systems. And so there was no way to give those individuals access to that content because they're not on any schedule anywhere. So essentially they don't exist in that feed of data that is flowing across. They're not in there. With Canvas, and we still haven't had a conversation about Canvas, but we'll get there. Conversation about Canvas. With Canvas, though, we have the ability to attach anyone to a course. The teacher has the ability. You as the teacher have the ability to attach anyone to your course. And there's a number of roles within Canvas, and one of them is a TA role, a teaching assistant role. We think actually that is going to be a great role for ESC resource teachers. And so you as a classroom teacher say, okay, I know that I have these 3 students who are receiving ESC services, and they're receiving, push-in services, and this teacher's coming in and they're working with them and they need to be able to see what they're doing. You as a teacher will be able to manually add them to your course, and they will be able to see everything that is happening in the course. They'll be able to see the students' work, they'll be able to see the content, and so Canvas allows us to do that. And so we're actually very excited about that because that solves a long-standing problem that we've had.
That's awesome. Will students be required to accept the Chromebooks? Like the parent didn't want the liability associated. And so do they have a choice? And the Chromebook is a mandatory.
Yes. So the Chromebook, I mean, we are viewing the Chromebook as a textbook. And so, we wouldn't give students the option to accept a textbook or not. And so I think we're going to probably be in the same situation with the Chromebook.
Tell them to call Jeff. I'm sorry. Tell them to call you.
I mean, the expectation is the student has a device. And so.
You are providing that white glove service.
Yes.
Can they not opt to take it home? K5 is not.
Yeah, so K5 is the plan is to not send the devices home with K5. The plan is to send it today. Yes, thank you. The plans change constantly, but where we are today, the plan is not to send them home K5. The plan is for the device to go home 6/12, and I think the expectation is that when the device goes home 6/12, is that you are making your assignments and doing your assignments and things in Canvas. And when you get an opportunity to see Canvas, I think you're going to be very pleased. Because it is an incredible platform. It's an easy platform. It's simple, but it's very powerful. And I think it's everything that you have been asking for years. The expectation is that you'll be using that, and students will be using that. And so they're going to need a device to be able to do that. And so
how about we transition to Canvas now, and then we can, there's still some additional non-device questions that I've been taking notes on. So at the end, we'll circle back to those.
Okay.
And we'll teach, and then Ms. Berry asked, will teachers be allowed to see a student view in addition to a teacher view? I think that's best asked in Canvas, right? Like that's it.
Yes.
So let's transition to Canvas, and then they've had asked questions about the gradebook pass back, but they don't know that.
So I think we've got to the device questions. Ms. Berry, I will circle back to that question as well in our Canvas conversation.
I'll get Ms. Davis.
Okay. So Canvas is the learning management system, as Ms. Gregory teed it up at the start of the conversation. It is best in class. It is a system that Florida State uses now. It is a system that a number of universities and a number of K-12 institutions use. And so it is a very powerful system. What it allows us to do is to provide content to students, which is not something that we've been able to do easily in our existing tools, such as Office 365. We are able to do, some assignments back and forth in our existing tools. We're able to do video chats and those sort of things, but it's not been a really great platform for providing content. And so Canvas allows us to provide the actual content to our courses within Canvas. You as the teacher have the ability to edit a lot of that content or to add content to it. And so you will be able to add those things directly into the course. It allows us to push assignments out to students. It allows the students to complete those assignments online and send them back to you. And once they come back to you, you are able to view all of the students' answers, and they have a wonderful tool. It's called Speed Grader. I think it's actually aptly named because it allows you to grade papers quickly. And so what it allows you to do is to see a student's response, to see their document that they completed. It allows you to annotate directly into that document. You can highlight, write anything in there you want. You can add comments, all of those sort of things, and then assign a grade and send it back to a student. And so essentially and then it allows you to very quickly, flip to the next page and see the next student. And so essentially it becomes very analogous to your stack of papers that you are flipping through as you're grading. And so all of that can be done digitally. So there's no paper that has to be done back and forth. And so that is built in. It allows us to leverage our existing tools. And so we've spent a lot of time, particularly in the last few months, although we've been working on it for a couple of years, and Kathleen Malloy has really been championing this, Office 365 movement. And so we've been working on that for years. And then, of course, in the last couple of months with the pandemic, everybody got really familiar with Office 365 and Teams and Zoom really quickly. And so, because it was kind of a trial by fire situation. So those existing tools, the existing skills that you have learned, Word Online, PowerPoint, Excel, OneNote, Teams, all of those things integrate seamlessly into Canvas. And so when you as a teacher make an assignment in Canvas, more than likely you have typed it up in Word. You have your assignment already done. Most of you probably have assignments that you use year over year, or that you tweak every year, but essentially it's a similar assignment. It will link directly with your OneDrive. And so when you go to make an assignment, you can say, I want to add this Word document from my OneDrive into Canvas, and you will select the document and then post the assignment. When students open the assignment on their side, it will automatically go out to your OneDrive. It will grab a copy of it and it will copy it down to the student's OneDrive. And it all happens very quickly and seamlessly in the background. And then it will open up in Word Online if it was a Word document. And students will just type and it will save as they're typing. And then when they're done, they'll press submit and it will come back to you as a teacher and you'll have access to the file that they put in their OneDrive. And so, I think this is very, very exciting. And so, it becomes, this kind of seamless transition between the tools that we already have. I tell people, learning management system, management really is a key word there. So it adds the content that we already have, or lets us add more content in the areas that we want to add more content, but it really allows us to manage all of the tools that we already have in a seamless way. And so for the last several years, we've been kind of piecemealing all of these tools together, and now they come together under one umbrella. And so, I think when you have an opportunity to get in there and see Canvas and play with Canvas, you're going to be very, very excited. I can't.
Can I show them? Share screen?
Yes.
Can I show them?
There should be a multiple screen share feature.
Yeah.
on right now.
So I think Miss Gregory,
I'm just gonna show them what account I'm over.
Okay.
I just have it. It's just a screen off of Google.
1 second.
Go ahead. I'm gonna try and figure it
Okay.
out.
Okay. So that's just some basic capabilities there. The other thing that we can do in Canvas is, if we're in a distance learning mode or a hurricane mode or any other mode, where we're out of school for any extended period of time, we all got very familiar with Zoom. We all got very familiar with Teams.
Yeah, I'm sharing.
And so, those tools still work within Canvas. And so you set up your meeting in Canvas. You say, we're going to have an assignment, and at 10 o'clock today, that assignment is going to be a Teams assignment, and it's a live video chat. And all of that is actually done right there in Canvas. So really, for anything with instruction for students, Canvas really becomes their repository. It really becomes their central platform for them to work from. And so it's, again, very, very exciting. I think you're going to be very pleased when you see it.
Because if I could add something there really quickly, one of the things Justin's mentioning, all these great features and tools in Canvas and the great things we're going to be able to do with it now, and that's super exciting. One thing as a teacher, I know I look at it and if I think of myself in the classroom, what I'm a little afraid of is the literally overwhelming power of the learning management system. And we're going to talk more in depth about this next week, I know, but that's kind of what our professional learning is going to help guide you through. Is we're going to start with some rationale of why you would do certain things online in a certain ways in instruction, and then point you in the direction of some of the resources that I think Ms. Gregory is about to share with you as well. So sort of talking about the theory of why would we use a discussion board for our classroom in Canvas, and then go into, and now, by the way, here's what the discussion board feature looks like. If that's kind of helpful to frame any anxieties that because this is exciting, but also it's a lot of new stuff, right? So I just wanted to add that in there.
Can you mute for just a second?
Sure.
Just a second.
Hey guys, so what we'll do is I just want much more elegant about this, but as someone who's not an IT person, I'm just going to scroll. It's got a dashboard with a to-do list. It's got published courses. It's got announcements. It's got grade. You'll see right where my view grades, all of those things. when he's talking about the integration with focus, your courses will populate based on what is in focus for your schedule. And similarly for students, it will do the same thing. And so, and again, I'm not someone who, I have not ever taught on Canvas actually, and I've never learned on Canvas. So many, this is when I actually have started to realize my age, because I used to be one of the young ones at the table, and now I am not. And so many of our colleagues have gotten their master's degrees with in higher ed institutions, because Canvas has been used extensively in higher ed online, and they typically are very familiar with Canvas. And so, for example, Miss Walden, I think, she is getting her doctorate in, and so at her higher ed institution, she's familiar with Canvas as a student. Some of our administrators are also college professors in our community. And so I know that there are some principals amongst us who have taught using Canvas. So we actually, and not only that, but we've used, as I mentioned, Canvas as part of our Leon County Virtual School. So this is just like, while Justin was talking, I Googled this. It's super fancy. It is not. And this just to give you a sense of what Canvas is. And then I went, again, like look at my subscriptions. I'm subscribed to Lego on YouTube, so that should tell you, not so much, my kids do. But in Canvas, I Googled Canvas, and it has its own channel, and I'm sharing that with you. And as Miss Walden mentioned, if you are a person who gets overwhelmed, I am one of those people. I would say, I could not wrap my brain around this right now. But if you are somebody who needs to see things and understand them, this is a Canvas, in this format. This is a Canvas channel, and you can see higher ed, but look, they have a whole K-12 the 2 minutes, 2 minutes, and of resources. I'm not sure if it's going to play in a way, take our time there, but it just gives you a really brief overview. Management system is, my internet connection is, that's a commentary on my life. It does show you that there are all kinds of things that you can do. And again, find your teaching tools, and one of me sharing this with you is maybe for some of us, we need to see it. And, as we're rolling things out, and I have Ms. Jones' question about professional learning, we'll get to that later, but just to kind of make sure you understand, I think this might be a really good resource. And so I wanted to share my screen with you. Clearly, we're not going to dive deep into this, but this is, again, just to give you an overview. And I would certainly encourage you, if you feel like that would be a good way for you to get some of the answers right now, I encourage you to take a look at Mr. Williamson.
Okay. So,
Muted?
Yep.
All right. So
does Teams go away then? That's
no. So the question, does Teams go away? And the answer is no. Teams still becomes our video delivery platform. It still becomes our platform that allows us to have live instruction in a virtual environment. And so it is an integral part of Canvas. I think what you might find is that some of the features, because Teams, there's always feature overlap between platforms. So Teams offers the ability to turn in assignments, but so does Canvas. And so I think what you're going to find is maybe some of those feature overlap things that you end up using them just in Canvas. And so, if you were using the assignments feature of Teams, you may stop using that and use the assignment features in Canvas. But you're still going to be able to use Teams integrated into Canvas. And if you're going to do any type of live video instruction with students, particularly if we're in a distance learning mode, Teams will be the tool that you will deliver that through. But it will be integrated seamlessly with Canvas. And so in Canvas, you will say, I'm going to have a meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. and it's going to be a Teams meeting. And there'll be a button for Teams in Canvas. And you'll click the Teams button and it will create the Teams meeting. It will put it on the student's calendar in Canvas and on their to-do list. And when students click on it, it will take them into that Teams meeting. And so all of that is
And Zoom.
and Zoom as well. And so all of that is managed by Canvas. And so what's nice about Canvas is that all students have a calendar in Canvas, and it is essentially their digital plan book, their digital agenda. And so as we're putting everything in Canvas, as we're putting all of our assignments and things, it automatically populates on the students' calendar, populates in their plan book. And so they have a view of everything that's happening across all of their classes in one place. And so we're very excited about that as well. It also gives them, a prioritized to-do list. It tells them, here's your next assignment that you need to be working on, based on due dates. And so all of that is managed, it's all done for students in Canvas. And it's very easy for you as a teacher. As you put those assignments in, you just simply give it a due date, and then Canvas takes care of all of the management stuff for you on the back end.
And can you just reiterate about the grade book?
Yes. So some of you may already be familiar with Canvas. If you're a virtual teacher in Leon County, you're certainly familiar with Canvas. And if you're a high school blended teacher, and so Hope or Econ, those courses have been blended instruction, which means, they're part digital instruction, part face-to-face classroom instruction. And so Canvas has been the platform that has delivered the digital instruction as well. So we do have some secondary teachers who are familiar with Canvas. And we've used it for the last 3 years, since 2017. And so in the past, teachers have they graded their assignments in Canvas because that's how students turn them in. And then they've had to run a report in Canvas and bring them out, either print them out physically or open them up on another screen in Canvas, and then flip over to Focus and add an assignment and enter in all of those grades. Just like they have a stack of papers and you have to enter in the grades from your stack of papers, they've had to do that from Canvas as well. What we are very excited about, and we've worked with Canvas on and we've worked with Focus, is the ability to sync grades that are issued in Canvas. So when you grade a paper in Canvas, you have the ability, there'll be a sync button, and you'll click the sync button and it will send the grade back automatically to Focus. And so you will not have to copy grades from Canvas and copy them into Focus. They'll sync back, the question is, does it affect weighting and all? So all of your existing categories that you set up in Focus in terms of grade weightings and all of those type of things, it will drop it into the appropriate categories, and then Focus will handle the appropriate weightings. And so it will. So all of that is hopefully make things much easier for you as teachers, and so you don't have to, to enter in grades twice.
Is there a way to video call with students from different periods at one time on Teams?
So that is something that has come up quite a bit. Actually, there are ways to video chat with students from multiple periods at one time in Teams, but it does require you as a teacher to do some setup there. What we can do in Canvas is, and we are looking at a couple of different organizational methods, and so we've not finalized those. In fact, we have a meeting with Canvas next week with our integrations team to kind of go through some of our ideas, and then to hear their suggestions on what is best practice, because they've done this before with hundreds of districts. But there is, within Canvas, you have the ability to push a Teams meeting out, not to just one class or one section, but to multiple sections. And so, if you're a secondary teacher and you're teaching, ELA 1, but you have 5 sections of it, you can push out that same Teams meeting to all 5 sections. And so they would all join and be in one meeting together.
So earlier there were some questions about Canvas. So I'm going to go back up and try and grab Miss Mader's questions.
Okay.
So just give me 1 second.
Okay, we're circling through, make sure we didn't miss any questions.
And it's
we
better
had some
not
earlier
to.
questions about Canvas. So give us 1 second.
When students are doing their assignments in Canvas, will they be able to save, or how
Yes.
does that work? Can you tell us
Yeah.
just a little bit about that?
So there's a number of ways that assignments can be done in Canvas. Canvas actually has its own built-in submission tool that allows students to type directly in Canvas. I think what most of you are going to probably end up using, though, is because your files already exist and they already exist in Word, is Office 365, which integrates right into Canvas as well. And so that tool saves as students type. And then it's not sent to you as a teacher to grade until they click the submit button. And so, if their students are writing a term paper, they may be writing that term paper for, 3 weeks. You don't receive it until they click submit and actually turn it in.
So Teams works better as an app. Will it be loaded into ClassLink Canvas also? So I think that's like a little bit of like, what is the integration with? I think that might be maybe a moment to explain how that drop down again, kind of how it's integrated behind the scenes.
Right. So there is, when we talk about Teams and it working as an app, there's a couple of options, and we're exploring both of them from the district perspective. There is a app that can be loaded directly on the Chromebook of the Teams app. It's very similar to the Teams app on Windows. It's not quite the same, but it's 98% the same, that can be loaded on, so that when students click the link, that it actually opens up in the Teams app. The other option that we have is when students click the link, that it opens up in the web version online. And so we are exploring both of those options to see with the integration. We understand that Teams as a standalone thing certainly works better in the app, but we're still trying to understand the integration side, if it works better in the web version or the app version. So we're still working on that.
So just to go back and reiterate, so are we keeping focus?
Yes.
So
So the question, and this question's actually come up a couple of times. So Focus is our system of record. Focus is what maintains transcripts. It's what keeps our schedules. It's what's used for state reporting, which is vital to us being funded. It keeps track of all of our ESC compliance, all of those things. And so Focus will still absolutely remain. It will be is a core business system that we have to have. Canvas simply integrates with Focus to make your life easier on the instructional side. And so you'll still take your daily attendance in Focus. At the end of the 9 weeks, your grades will have to be in Focus. So none of those processes will change. What will change is simply having to enter the grades into Focus from Canvas. That doesn't have to be done, which certainly simplifies your life. And so it certainly simplifies life there, which is another reason I think once you all have the opportunity to get into Canvas and start seeing the integrations live and how things are working, I think many people will immediately jump on Canvas as a tool that makes your life so much easier. Okay. We have
more. Yeah, I got dropped. I gotta go back up.
Okay, 1 second, guys.
Do you want to? Edits. When a teacher edits a document, do they have to edit in multiple sections, multiple places?
So assignments and in multiple sections is something that we're actually working on. So Canvas does have some capabilities there to recognize multiple sections. So it has the ability to recognize one course and then sections within the courses. And so that is something that is actually one of the first items on our agenda to discuss with Canvas next week when we have our meeting with them, because it's our understanding, and we've talked to many districts in the state, that is actually not how most people are set up. And so we're curious as to why. And we don't really have the answer to that. And so hopefully Canvas will be able to shed some light. Maybe there's some reason that they are intentionally not doing it. And so we're not sure 100% that we're able to do that, but that is something that we are certainly investigating and would like to do, because that would allow you to push out one assignment and say, all 5 of my sections get this assignment, and I'll, from this one file. And so we are looking into that, and barring any technical reason as to why we shouldn't do that, I think that's the path we'll take.
I've been dropped, so.
There was a question, will a mock class be set up to play around with prior to the year starting?
Yeah, so we are working on that now. It is and many of you have experience. Well, everyone has experience with an online LMS in the form of Moodle, which is our LMS that we've been using for all of our online PD. So if you'll think back to the beginning of the year, you took, your required training, your ethics, your DCF reporting, all of those things were delivered to you in Moodle, which is another LMS. It's not as nice or as pretty as Canvas, but so there is some experience there. We are working on today and hope to will be done by July 1, is all users loaded into Canvas, and certainly a introduction to Canvas course, and it's like an hour course that if teachers want to go through, they can. And it will be very similar to what you've kind of done in Moodle, but just in Canvas. But it will be introducing you to Canvas. And so it's the course to walk through with some videos and a little bit of reading and, screenshots to orient you with the system. The other thing that we are working on, and we've not come up with a solution yet, is giving you access to your actual courses that you will be teaching. And being able to see how that actual course looks. We do have a technical issue, and we have some possible workarounds. The issue that we are facing today is that we've asked schools not to finalize schedules until the second or third week of July, because we need to understand how many students are going to a digital academy. And so those are the students who are not returning back to brick and mortar. And so schools are still working on that. And so because we don't have schedules finalized, we can't push them out of Focus into Canvas yet. And so for next year's courses, and we won't be able to do that until later in July. So what we have played with is the idea of maybe trying to load last year's schedules into Canvas for the summer, so that you could at least see your courses from last year. And certainly if you're not having significant teaching assignment changes, that would give you, the ability to at least see what you would have saw last year to play with. Certainly if you're changing grade levels at the elementary level, or, the secondary level, you're having significant assignment changes. Your principal said, you are teaching English 1, but next year we're going to have you teaching English 4. Those kind of changes. Unfortunately, we don't have a way to capture them yet, but that is something that is on our radar.
There was a question about updates to addresses in Focus. If the registrar has received new information, can teachers have access to that new information, or is there some kind of process?
Versa, if teachers get information, can they add to it? Update it?
So I am not the Focus expert. So that's a great question for Missy Atkinson. I do not believe that teachers being able to update addresses in Focus is a possibility right now.
No, I don't think they can.
I don't think that.
No, I mean, as a parent and with this child in school, I think only I can do it, and then I have to provide evidence,
Right.
proof of that.
Right, because when you update addresses, you update, that changes school zones and everything else, and so there has to be documentation has to be provided as part of that, and so really, only the school registrar or the parent can update that. But I think if you anecdotally as a teacher receive, the parent has said, here's my new address. I think there's a process within your school to notify the registrar, hey, this parent just told me their address changed. We need to, you need to circle back with them and go through the appropriate steps there.
Well, teachers and staff earn PD hours. We have a whole bunch of, Ms. Wald, we can talk about the PD stuff when you're done with Canvas. Do you want to let them know that? Or?
Yeah.
Are you done? Okay.
So the PD question, we're gonna hold for just a moment, and we'll talk about PD at the end. Ms. Walden will let us know where we are with PD.
So will Canvas be used outside at Lively and at ACE?
So that is a great question. As part of this expansion, Ms. Bell has negotiated onto the district contract, so Lively will have its own instance of Canvas. And so they were able to piggyback off of our contract. And so
yes. One of the questions for ACE is the credit recovery for students.
So the 9 and 12 students who take credit recovery at ACE,
Right.
Are you asking about the credit recovery courses, or will the students who are credit recovery students have an account with ACE? Like
Yeah, will it be the same using Canvas
they will be, the students who are 9-12 students will be using Canvas,
for credit recovery?
but I'm not sure if will Play-Doh integrate with
I think you're still going to have to,
go through Canvas.
you will still have to use Play-Doh as the delivery mechanism, and then you can use Canvas to turn in any assignments, to those kind. So same thing, that the integration with
So
outside
Play-Doh's
textbooks.
Play-Doh's like Edmentum engineering, right? Like so.
Yeah, I mean essentially it's only on that.
So I don't. We'll have to work on that. I don't have a clean answer yet. But the student ACE, does ACE have does ACE have Canvas?
About 1800. So yeah, I think that
So
does.
ACE and Lively do have Canvas. On the integration with Play-Doh, we have to check on that.
So
I don't know if you could hear me.
So the response was, in case you didn't hear Ms. Gregory, ACE and Lively will have Canvas, and then we will check on the integration for Play-Doh and credit recovery.
Okay, so I don't see any other Canvas questions. So I think, sorry, I didn't get all the messages.
So they're asking about ESE technology.
Oh, yeah. So Ms. Shoemaker asked, so students who have assistive technology devices, do they lose those devices and have to use the Chromebook, or will they?
No.
So can you just talk about that?
Yeah, so certainly any student who has been assigned, I got really bigger, thanks, Scott. So certainly for students who have been issued an assistive technology device or any type of adaptive device as part of their IEP, will still continue to receive that device. And so, this would be another device that they could have, to supplement that device. So we will not be taking the devices away for students who need them for accommodations. They'll certainly.
Does Chromebook work with some of those devices?
There are some things that we can do some integrations between the Chromebook and certainly with Canvas in terms of adaptive technology, and so Canvas internally has some built-in capabilities for that already. For students who maybe have vision impairments, Canvas can do turn everything high contrast. As a setting that the student can select, so that it's always high contrast, or if they need an enlarged screen. Canvas can do that. Built in, it also has some screen reader capabilities on some of the aspects for students who may need that. And so there are some adaptive technologies built into Canvas that will be able to be utilized on the Chromebook side. But certainly, any type of communication device that a student may have, or be using.
Text-to-speech, I think, that's part of it. It depends on the curriculum.
So text-to-speech, all of those kind of things are built into Canvas, but standalone devices, I think for now, will certainly still exist. And so.
And just as you kind of wrap up, maybe some closing comments. How many other districts in Florida use Chromebooks and or Canvas?
Yeah.
I mean, so that there's a sense that we're not on that.
Yeah. So in terms, we've done it. The question was how many others are using this same setup that we are, and know that we are not alone in this selection of Chromebooks and Canvas. And so, in fact, our latest research, when we went out and we first started talking about one-to-one. And having conversations about it, and really this shift to Chromebooks, which is a new platform for us. So we in Leon County Schools have always been predominantly a Microsoft district with a little bit of Macs thrown in. And so, Chromebooks is essentially its own platform provided by Google, and its own operating system provided by Google. We went out and did a lot of research on this, and what we have found is that 80% of one-to-one initiatives use a Chromebook. And so it is predominantly the device used used in education for students to use. Yes, it's very simple. It's a very easy device. It's low maintenance device, and it's relatively inexpensive because the device itself, because of its simplicity, does not require as much internal components to be able to run. We certainly looked at the Windows devices, which is what we're very familiar with. In fact, that's actually where we went first, because that's our default standard. And so in order to get a Windows device that was able to do this was significantly more in terms of money, because they required more hardware, because the system required more to run. And so I think, 80% of other districts have also come to this conclusion. And so we certainly are not alone. And then as Ms. Gregory said, Canvas is the gold standard. It is now like the #1 LMS. I think they're now surpassing Blackboard, which has, previously been the gold standard. I guess we'll call them silver standard now. And so they're being, surpassed as the #1 LMS. So we really kind of have best in class on both sides. We have best in class for devices for students, and we kind of have best in class for LMS as well. And so we're very excited about that.
Okay.
So, you want me to? So with that said, I'm going to turn this back over to Miss Gregory, who has some more things that she would like to speak about, and then Miss Walden, who will talk to us a little bit about professional development.
Thanks, Mr. Williamson. Just a thumbs up for people not with us. Can you hear me? I just want to make sure if somebody can give me. Thank you. Okay, so what we wanted, the purpose of today was really to spend some time talking about the one-to-one devices and our learning management system. And so I hope that you found this conversation between Williamson fruitful. And as always, we stand ready and available to answer questions. We're a little busy, so it may take us longer than respond, but we are here and stand ready to respond to any questions or concerns that you may have. One of the chat box today I want to pivot to is going out and getting devices and integrating the head is really in professional learning because this means nothing if the devices sit in their cubbies. And yes, the camera's still on, Mr. Williamson. The devices, I am fine with that. I assure you. But the idea, that's a lot of me. The devices really, at the end of the day, if they sit in the cubby or they're used in a superficial way, we're not optimizing our resources, and we don't have a ton of resources. We're in the education industry, and so we have been working really diligently to identify personal learning as I mentioned earlier, through a lot of different channels. So Miss Walden is here today, and next week's theme is professional learning. And so we're going to really dive deeply in. We spent about an hour and a half talking about devices today, so I anticipate spending just as much time next week talking about professional learning, our plan and feedback, and all of those kinds of things. But if Miss Walden, if you want to just kind of jump in and talk, I have some questions about, how are you identifying, and I'll kind of prompt you here and
sure, yeah, because my browser needs an update. So
yes,
yeah, we're working on it.
Hi,
that is a lot of me. Okay, yeah.
It's like really intimate.
Yeah.
So one of the questions we got is how will we identify professional learning, and how will teachers be informed of professional learning and expectations around that, and all that, and maybe I think our goal is to push it out now. There's not an expectation they do it now. They can do it during pre-planning, and we're going to do lessons that we're going to provide them. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yep. So just as a really brief overview of what we're doing in professional learning, we really kind of took a step back and said, what are the best ways that we can support you in this? Because we also know that everybody's kind of in a different place in terms of how secure they feel about teaching online. Literally, there's going to be different forms of teaching online. Is it in my regular classroom, but we're blending and we're looking towards what happens if we have to go home, or am I in the digital academy? There's all these different variables, right? And the common variable to everybody is really in that instructional best practice. And we know that's something that we're all different levels at. And then you add the layer of, we have to do this now online. So the first series of PD that you're going to see, and are ways to earn points in response to a question that I earlier, when you go into the website, and it was sent out this morning on the weekly, the academic survey Resources Week comes to your email. It will come out at least bi-weekly this summer, probably more like weekly, truthfully, is going to be the need. But there is the link to the website, and also we've given that link ahead of time that will be shared out specifically with you guys to a webpage that is locked down just to teacher access and LCS. It's on SharePoint for that reason. And the first 3 videos are there, and they're honestly a lot about what are the mindset shifts that we're going to have to make to really think about quality instructional practice online. And that to kind of allow for everybody to give us a sense of where they're at, truthfully. So it's talking about things like, well, what changes about curriculum online? When we think about that, what changes about lesson planning for online structures? And then we're going to come back, and I've already actually, I had a video come in to me yesterday about using the module planning feature in Canvas. And so we're going to, in some ways, I'm almost calling it choose your own adventure PD. So you start with it's non-platform specific, non-grade level or subject specific. Think about what it means to plan in a module style. And then after you finish that, key points for that, we've got the recommendation, hey, next, if you're curious about what this looks like in Canvas, you should start looking at this video on how do you set up a module in Canvas, like what are the buttons to push. And so that's kind of the pattern we're going to follow for now. Start with these general, like what is the mindset shift is the question first. Then what are the buttons to push? What are the things and the tools that I can use to get me to do those things? I'm sorry.
Share that link in the chat.
That is
Okay,
the link
I
you
was
can
just
share.
gonna copy
Yep,
and
it's
paste it.
active, it's live. We're going to put the link to this webpage in the chat as well. And then throughout the summer, and literally every day, I'm adding resources to this page that you're getting the link for. Like I said, I added one this morning just on how to do the modules in Canvas. And then we're going to start filtering it down to more specific PD by grade level, by subject area, by special considerations like ESE services. And it's all set up to be this sort of micro PD format. And so again, to that question about points, when we can, we've built in activities where you send us reflections. Maybe you send us your own video of you using the practice or talking about your practice so that we can crowdsource some best practices on this, and we'll post some of those. We're really trying to make it interactive, but the big thing to me too that I took away from the needs here, I want to make sure we're checking in with you, not just through these Fridays, but I'm starting to build an evaluation plan of our PD, like evaluating the impact we're having on, are we serving you well? And so we have obviously the plan, if you get in to check out our PD, that's starting to offer our page and come back with suggestions to next Friday during our session when I'll be here. But then again, at a minimum, we have a plan to kind of get some broader feedback from teachers, administrators, parents, students on everything we're offering, because we have a separate chunk of resources for administrators, parents, and students that we're going to be feeding out throughout the summer as well. And we want to see, because this is also, I mentioned last week, something that did implement over 18 months, and now we're boiling it down to start in about 3, right? So knowing that the PD won't all happen this summer, it won't be finished work this summer, and that we're going to have to keep going. We want to make sure this cycle is effective, and we can only do that if we're listening to you. That being said, it is summer. And so participation in these things at the moment in the summer is optional. We're going to have a separate push that happens during pre-planning, a separate push with lessons and assignments that are models and that you can implement in your own classroom as we get closer to the school year and in pre-planning and in the first few weeks as well, kind of help accommodate those scheduling things so that no one has to feel the pressure to do this right now. This is at your leisure, for your information, and then calming any anxieties just to make sure we're supporting you and giving you that. So I think that's all.
Also check their email spam just in case it went to spam.
Yes. Yes. And because we're going to be sending out the website is kind of the one-stop shop for the videos and pieces that we have, sort of, I guess, curated for you. But check your spam, because I know that Major and Australia sent out an email just now, and it has the link in it. And also I know sometimes our professional learning newsletter has been sent to spam or clutter or things like that. Make sure that you've unchecked that as well, so that you'll have access to that, because that's the main way that we can get that information to you.
Can you go on the landing page? Is there like a multiple thing go to the professional learning department to the, is there a way?
Yes, and so
In case they don't get the email or.
in case you don't get in case you can access it, yes, there is going to be, if you know where the professional learning website is, if you go to, on the LCS website, I believe it says departments. Yep, you can go to departments and look for professional learning. There is a tab on the left-hand side that says one-to-one initiative, links in to the page. And then I think also there is a quick menu at the top with the little guy in the brown suit for professional learning, and that would take you to the professional learning webpage where you have the one-to-one link housed as well.
So I think it's a quick link on the
A quick link.
It's a quick link on the Leon County Schools webpage, and then there's also, if you want to go through departments, professional learning, there are many different ways to get there.
Yeah, many different ways to get there to that landing page as well. If you can't get it in your email, is what Ms. Gregory is saying. On the professional learning website, however you would access that, typically from the LCS homepage, be it through the quick links, be it through departments in professional learning, or up at the top where you click frequently, I think it's frequently used links or something, and it drops down and the guy in the little suit is there at the top of the page. So those are all the ways to access it. Anything else that we can think of? Were there any questions? Let's see. There was a question, what's this about? There's some questions about, can the information be put on the LCTA Facebook page and website?
Yes. All of the calendar dates we will add to the website. It's available. We're going to put the web links on the website. We'll put it on the social media as well. And we'll make sure that we have all of these meetings on the LCTA calendar so that you can access those if you don't receive the email. Okay.
And I see a question about, once we go to Canvas, can we have curriculum developers create a SharePoint to allow teachers to share content? That's exactly what we're hoping to branch out into with this eventually. Absolutely. And our developer team is working behind the scenes, yes, to kind of get started on the subject area and grade level and content area specific lessons. Yes. Because we are also Mr. Williamson and a few others are working on trying to find content for you that is available to you, be adapted for online use, because we know that will be a struggle, and we're going to have some information coming out about that. Our developers are using their pacing guides to develop what we're referring to as a content map, because it's not necessarily the here's the schedule, you go in the online curriculum every single day type thing, but we wanted you to have a touch point to kind of see in these different resources that we're able to provide you that are already made online. If tomorrow I want to, just because we know, here's the thing, if we teach the students how to use Canvas and how to do this in our brick and mortar setting on the first week of school, but then it's the second semester when we have to go home again or something like that, and we've not practiced since, they forget it, right? And so the expectation, the hope is that teachers will be blending the Canvas, the online learning regularly into their curriculum. And so this content map, not curriculum, but content map is going to give teachers a point where they can reference in the online curricular sources we're providing to say, oh, you know what, there is this thing that we've pulled from, Georgia, that is the similar piece of content. I'm going to use that in my traditional classroom tomorrow. And then it will also help those teachers in the digital academy really know their options for what they can navigate through for teaching online that's already made. It already really utilizes as many best practices about learning theory in the online environment as possible. We're actively curating a list of content that can be readily available to you in Canvas like that as well. And those content maps our developers are working on are going to serve as sort of the guide to what's out there that you could use at any given moment that would easily integrate into what you're already using, if that makes sense. Are there any other questions with that?
Seems to do it.
We are going to do the digital academy next. Yep.
But any other questions, PD? That's
No.
Yes.
No.
All right, good. I'm back. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's like a headache. But I just wanted to circle back on a couple of things. So thank you, Ms. Walden and Mr. Williamson. Ms. Walden, again, next week will be the Professional Learning Week, where we really dive deeper into some of the content and share with you how we've organized it. We're organizing professional learning not just for you, but for administrators and for our families, our teachers, our students and our parents, because each of them has a different role and different responsibilities in this. And so one thing is, let's talk about face-to-face. So what does this all mean for face-to-face learning? And both Mr. Williamson and Ms. Walden alluded to it, right? And someone asked a question in the chat box. So I just want to make sure. So if we are brick and mortar and face-to-face, we already have our core adopted instructional materials, right? So if you're in elementary, it's Wonder, secondary, it's Collections, and ELA, math, it's Go Math, Science Fusion, whatever. Those are our adopted instructional materials. Mr. Williamson is working behind the scenes to integrate them into Canvas, so as I mentioned, we've got Canvas as our management system, but we still got to put stuff on Canvas, and so we're going to be putting some things on there for the face-to-face for everyone. It'll be in Canvas, so everybody will have access to it. But also, what we know is that our Wonders curriculum, our Go Math curriculum, it's not really designed for online learning. It's a design for face-to-face instruction, and sure, there's an online component to it, but it's not really the thrust of what they do. And so that was really, we knew that going into pandemic 1.0, the fourth 9 weeks, but we danced with who showed up to dance, right? We had what we had. So what Ms. Walden referenced is we in academic services are actively seeking digitized content designed specifically for the delivery of instruction in an online environment. And we've got plenty of that in the world, right? So if you think about it, one of the things the state of Florida has done really, really well is Florida Virtual School. And so Florida Virtual School is our online public high school that's been in existence since the mid-90s. They have a wealth of resources, right? And so as an example, that would be like they have content, and so companies like Edmentum and Edgenuity and all the so we are going to places, not physically, but we are going to places to pull content to load it into Canvas. As Ms. Walden referenced, the state of Georgia has a really robust online learning program. They're giving, Mr. Williamson is coordinating, and they're giving us stuff for free. And so, we all say it's got to be like free 99. That's how much it's got to cost, free 99. And so that's, we're working diligently to get content loaded into the the learning management system, so that when students go in, when you go in, it's not just a blank screen, but you're clicking on resources assigned to you that are part of the courses that you're assigned to in focus. So if you're a science teacher, you're assigned to the science content, and then the student sees the science content from the student side, and you see the teacher content, but also we'll also load up science content from a digitized source. And so that curriculum piece in face-to-face, we really are going to have to talk about how do we get there. So we're going to start the year, and the first week of school, we're working diligently to get you, and I'm making as an example, but a week's worth of lesson plans on being good digital citizens and the device and those kinds of things. And then the second week of school, we're talking about doing something with a whole week's worth of activities in and around Canvas. K-12, right, that are developmentally appropriate, that are orienting to the student and to the teacher. And so by doing those things, it not only strengthens your practice because you've gotten some stuff in pre-planning, but also it gives you some time, right, to take a pause and to be learners with your students and to get in there. Mr. Williamson promises me the devices are super easy and user-friendly, and I absolutely believe him. He's given me no reason not to believe that. I haven't touched one yet, but I'm looking forward to it one day. And then Canvas, I have full confidence. Again, like you said, it's been implemented in 80% of the district. 80% of the districts around the state who are going one-to-one. So they've got this down. We're going to get there. I have full confidence in that. And so then these people. We got to talk about the curriculum. So we're going to do those 2 weeks worth of lesson plans. I've really worked with, and I've talked to Mr. Seifert, who oversees the curriculum services side of academic services, about really modifying our testing calendar. How we do in August, the baseline, which is AR star and all that, pushing that back a little bit so that we can get everyone comfortable, because When everyone comes back, something's going to break out. We all know that. And so we need to do that. We need to get everybody comfortable with the devices and stuff first so that should we go home in September, we're ready to, I mean, it's not like we haven't had a hurricane in September ever. It's like we're ready to go. And so we're working on all of that right now. And so for the curricular side, it's coming. I hope we have a sense of urgency about this. And so we're going to try and get that out and get something in place. Hopefully maybe by next Friday, I'll be able to kind of work it through. But it has to go to the board, I believe, on the following Tuesday. So, we're working through that process. I think certainly by July 1 for the curriculum piece, we'll have something in place. With that said, if you teach something that's really specialized, I don't know, like strings 6, it's really hard to find that specialized content. Also, not that we do this, but sometimes we teach a class like semantics, but we really are teaching something else, like it's the student council class in high school, and we call it in 10th grade semantics and in 11th grade leadership and 12th grade. And so semantics comes with its own right? There are all of our schools do something special. And so those special things, we're probably not going to be able to find content for. And I want to be super transparent about that on the front end, because I don't want anyone to be like, well, we can't deliver that. But can we deliver content associated with generally most of our core classes? Core classes, yes. Specialized academic electives like AP Hug, AP Psych, those things, we're working on that too. CTE we're working on, International Baccalaureate we're working on, and that's all the stuff associated with the curriculum to digitize, to put online. So that's where we are with curriculum. As it relates to manipulatives, and again, we're talking about face-to-face, those things are not going to change. Small group instruction is not going to change. The physical manipulatives, we're talking about particularly in the primary grade level, science labs, face-to-face, that does not change with Canvas and with a one-to-one device. And certainly, virtual reality and tools like that, actually, this whole new world is open to us because students will have a device in front of them. And so, it could be a really exciting, innovative time, right? We're taking from, lemons and making lemonade. So that's all the face-to-face stuff. Let's talk about the digital academies. So a digital academy, what we recognized is that the state of Florida is kind of the train's left the station, right? Whether we've got 1,000 cases of coronavirus COVID or 3,000 cases as in yesterday, our governor and the commissioner of education, the train's left the station. They want us to open up at 100%. And to a certain extent, and our superintendent understands that. And so our plan is to open up at 100%, right? And when we say 100%, we really mean opening up and our buildings are open, our teachers are. We also recognize our population, that's not going to work for lots of reasons, least of which, right, like the child has, moderate asthma or has an underlying medical condition, or they're a multi-generational family living in a home and there's a person 65 who in and of itself is in own class of at risk. So for some families, they can't come back to school. So what we're going to do, the internet connectivity is problematic. So what we're going to do is we're opening up these digital academies. And so every one of our traditional brick and mortar schools is going to have a digital academy attached to it. So Roberts Elementary School is going to have the Roberts Elementary brick and mortar and then the Roberts Elementary Digital Academy. And those students at Roberts who can't come in or whatever, for lots of reasons, can go to the digital academy. When we surveyed our families, many of them who responded, now we only had 25% response rate, but we had about 25% of that 25% indicate that they would elect a digital academy. And so we recognize our community has this need. And so students will be allowed and families will be allowed to enroll in the digital academies from in mid-July on. And really what the delay in that is, we have the task force next week, and from that task force, the district will be receiving items for consideration. And as the district develops the open plan in terms of like things like safety and security and hygiene, none of which I'm an expert on. Masks, mandated, not mandated, face shields, what grade, who, where, buses, all of that, none of my world. But as the district does that and a task force provides that input, we'll have a plan developed and pushed out so that families can make a more informed decision, right? And so because what we also heard universally on the survey is that, I don't know enough to answer these questions. And so we want to make sure we provide some decision points using the feedback from the task force, and then make announcements and then go from there. So what does the Digital Academy look like? The Digital Academy teacher, and what's gonna drive it is enrollment, is going to be a teacher from that school delivering instruction to students in an online environment. And so the digital students are still Leon County School students. So that was a question a couple of times in the chat room. Do these kids get computers? Yes, all Leon County public school students get computers. Put a pin in that. Charter school students are not our students. So our students get the computers, number one. Number two, they will be using Canvas, and their primary delivery method for instruction will be in Canvas, and we'll be using Teams for live instruction or Zoom for live instruction. And so that looks like, on Monday, the teacher and the students, get together and they are interacting, assignments are given, instruction occurs, and then Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and so on. So the thing that's changed is that rather than the face-to-face where we're integrating Canvas and the devices in our everyday classroom, the Digital Academy students, this is their classroom. And so they'll be using those devices as the primary method by which they receive instruction, which is a difference, right? And so there's a chat. Can somebody read the picture I'm getting from? So that's where we are. The Digital Academy students what I want to be clear on is the Digital Academy at this time, and things could change, but right now, it's not that we're going to take the school and pivot it online. It's really going to be its own content, because it's not managed, and so we're gonna have to pick. So electives are going to be different for these students, right? So at the high school level, there are many electives that are really unique to our schools. And so I don't know that they'll be able to be delivered in a digital format. And so we're really sausage making there. What does that look like? Even though we have content online, but Band 6 I don't know how you do Band 6 online, or marching band, or all of those kinds of things. It's one thing to do digital information technology. It's one thing to do creative photography. We've got that, but really some of those more specific welding. How do we do welding online, right? And so we're still in the process of working through some of that, but for the purpose of today, many of the questions I've seen have had to do with what does that look like? So the student, my child who's a student at X school, as a student Hartsfield, she's a Hartsfield Hawk. She logs into Canvas, it's gonna be blue and white, it's a Hartsfield Hawk. She's going to get instruction, and that will be paced and worked towards as a Hartsfield Hawk. Another student at Gilcrest is going to have red and white, and he's going to be a Grizzly. And when he logs in and he's at the Gilcrest Digital Academy, he's going to see red and white, and he's going to have and if there are enough students, it's just going to be a teacher from one of those schools providing the instruction. If it's not enough students, again, we're making sausage to do some coordination and figure it out at the district level. I think there have been some questions, and I want to make sure I answer them, and time is running short.
Yeah.
Okay. How would separate, the ESC question, Ms. Payberg, if you could maybe explain it. I'm not sure I understand your question. I'm so sorry. But I will say that Ms. Shields and Dr. Cox have been looped in on these conversations. Dr. Cox and I work together regularly, and so he's been looped in on the Digital Academy conversations as representing ESC, and then I know that Ms. Shields and I have spoken about them as recently as yesterday, and yesterday was Thursday, and Wednesday we met face to face. So will teachers be working on campus? I don't know yet. I don't know what that's going to look. Ms. Lillis, one digital teacher per school only, or one for each grade level of school? That's really going to be driven by the numbers. I'm not sure yet. You'd probably, if you had, let's just say 20 students per grade level, I think that probably at the elementary level, I'm thinking specifically, you probably have your own teacher. But if you had 5 here and 10 here, I don't know how what that's going to look like. And so we're going to work through that. And what's really going to drive it are kind of an understanding of our numbers, our health and safety precautions. Will there be any policy in place to allow teachers who have at-risk family members at home to request online teaching positions? That is not my lane. I don't know. That's Ms. McAllister, but I will make sure to take a note of it and let her know. I see her on Monday, and I'll make sure that I will let her know that question came up. I understand that the program records should have the same access to digital, but I think we'll be defended. So the IB issue we are working on specifically for IB, we recognize it's kind of its own thing. Similarly, magnet, we had a meeting with high school professor yesterday and Cook about that. Ms. Marshall is working with Mr. Cook on that. So we recognize that. I will ask Mr. that on my but these are really good questions, and I don't know, I haven't heard looking. And Ms. Shields didn't say anything to me when I met with her this week. All right, so So the Digital Academy is going to be in by semester. So Digital Academy is to provide students who need to stay home for And so we've had some questions from come in for a class, defeats the
There you go. It's unmuted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my computer, I'm having all kinds of computer issues. So the purpose of the defeats the purpose of the Digital Academy, right? And so that's why we're not really sure how that's going to look. The issue is that in our district, because of homeschool, families who homeschool, they do drop in, particularly at the secondary level for classes like a foreign language or a special elective. So that's still a work in progress. What I can say is that the superintendent has been really clear in his messaging that the students will be enrolled for the first semester. And then in November, we're going to do a survey and identify who wants to return. And depending on all kinds of things, all based on science, which we believe, but like vaccines or how all that's going to work and treatments and all that, that will probably inform the parents' survey responses in November and then inform the work in January. I hope that was helpful. If a student gets sick, will they transfer to the Digital Academy? If a student working on, as I think we all know by now, like working online is no joke. So if a student gets sick with COVID, they need to get better, and then we'll just work on everything else. And so that's the thing is that by all accounts, the illness is no joke. Thankfully, Actually, I have had people not in Florida who in my life who have had it, and I know we were really worried. My friend in Western Massachusetts had it, and she was hospitalized, and so it was serious. And so I just don't think we would flip them into the Digital Academy as a function of being sick. I think we would have them work with it, develop a plan to help the students get better and meet their needs there with something they're already comfortable with, rather than adding, like, now you can't go back to school, you've got to go here, right? Like, we would want them to stay wherever they are and receive the support because they're connected to whatever teachers they're connected to. So a teacher could and most likely be teaching multiple grade level content. If you're looking from an elementary, I don't know, maybe from an elementary lens, if you are the Digital Academy teacher, it's entirely possible. If you are a high school teacher, it's just gonna really depend on the numbers. I mean, 10% of 2,000 is 200 students. So it's entirely possible, like at a high school, that you're teaching English, but you've got 3 prep, you're teaching a full load of English because you've got 200 kids. Well, you wouldn't have all 200, but 200 kids. 10% of 200, 10%, 20% of Pineview's enrollment is 48 students. And so more than likely, you're not going to have 21 grade level. Now, I don't think at Pineview you're going to have 20% because parents work outside of the home generally and don't have the ability to provide supervision. I fully recognize that. But realistically, you probably aren't going to get 20 students per grade level at a smaller school. And so I think that I'm not naive, and I want to be transparent. I don't think that the numbers will work in that way. But what will happen in that instance is if, let's say, they have 5 students at Pineview and 10 students at Bond and 16 students at Kate Sullivan, at the district, my office, Miss Virtual School's now coming to me. We've reorged a little bit. Miss Lowe's coming to me, and we're going to help support that coordination. So it's not that somebody at the school is doing both, that we will coordinate those small numbers into one person. The student will still be a Bond student, will still be a Kate Sullivan Crocodile, but the teacher, like we do with itinerant teachers, will kind of flow between the 3 schools. And and by the way, this is all that I know right now. And it could probably, I could leave here, have a text message from my boss, and it will all have changed. But I'll tell you next Friday. I have a Chromebooks question. Will enough Chromebooks actually be received in time for all students to have them?
In terms of the Chromebooks and delivery, we are on schedule so far for an August delivery. But I started the conversation with saying that there are many things happening in the world that are outside of our control, and so we'll certainly keep you apprised of that. But where we are today, that we still like we're on target for an August 1 delivery date.
I think there's a question about a forced transfer. If parents enroll in Florida Virtual School, that takes away from local enrollment and affects jobs. That is correct. Florida Virtual School is its own school district, so it would be no different than enrolling in Miami-Dade or Orange County. Can we be very clear about that with parents as they are making choices about options for the fall? We are going to try to be very clear in our communication, but certainly if you guys have feedback for us, tell us to use different words, we will. What happens to staff if the Digital Academy number is high? Will teachers be required to transfer? No, I don't anticipate anybody being required to transfer. I'm not sure. So the Digital Academy is going to be tied to the school. And so if the numbers are high, that's great because that means more teachers for the school at the school. It's really if the student numbers are low, then we will have to navigate something. And but we would want people who want to be itinerant because that requires a specific skill set. That would work for EIC access classes as well. Okay, and that's all. Okay.
So the labor relations issues, we will work through the MOUs, and we'll make sure that we work with Dina McAllister on those things. So as Jillian said, the landscape is changing every day. But what it looks like right now, maybe mid-July, looks a little different. So we're just trying to get everybody in the right spot, right frame of mind before we get there, so that we understand that what our options are. So
okay, so with that being said, I know we want to respect everybody's time, and we said we would go from 10 to noon. Right now, we may all feel very apprehensive, but we're growing and we're gaining more knowledge about technology. During these few weeks, as collaborative conversations are taking place, we're asking that you listen, that you learn, and then you reflect through this process. And all questions you can filter through Scott or I, and we will make sure that the appropriate people get that.
Yeah, so if you need to reach me, you just reply to any one of the emails that have been sent out at scott.mazer@floridaea.org, or you can reach Kim at leonteachers.org, and we will make sure that we have those email accounts posted up on the website as well with the PD information if you need to get a hold of us. So there were some questions, and we'll leave you with this, of concern that there are not classroom teachers on the task force that meets, that met earlier this week and will be meeting next week. To be very clear, there have been teacher task force that Jillian has done. How many about those were there?
At least 12.
At least 12.
And plus else, so 13. I think at least 13 for sure.
And these are also serving as part of that, because we're providing feedback that creates either last week communication understanding, right now devices understanding, professional development, what our schedule looks like going down the road. We can talk about that, but we appreciate everyone taking their time and being.
Have a great weekend.
All right, take care, guys.